Hey, what's up, everybody? So good to be here with you. And you know, one of the phrases that I've heard a lot this last year is just the phrase, I can't wait to get back to normal. I mean, I can't wait to get back to like full concerts or venues or sporting events. I can't wait to get back to no masks and no social distancing. I can't wait for family gatherings or reunions or travel. I can't wait to get back to normal. And it does feel like those realities are starting to happen fast. But I just wonder today, how tragic would it be if we simply went back to normal without changing at all? I mean, for a lot of us, normal is not nearly as good as we're recasting it in our minds to be. For some of us, back to normal would literally mean going back to the same old bitterness, or back to the same old negativity, back to the same old cynicism, or the same old destructive behavior, or the same old exhaustion. So I don't know about you, I don't really want to get back to normal. I want to get back to better. And I don't simply want to go back to the way things were. I want to move into the future that God has planned for us. I don't just want to see the capital C church go back to the church as it was. I hope we learn from the past and become the church that God is calling us to be. I believe God can use what you've been through to give you a breakthrough. You've learned some things over the last year. You've faced some things over this past season. And you can take all of those lessons and you can build them into your future and grow. And one of the best ways that we can do that is to allow the fruit of God's Spirit to be developed in our lives. We've been talking about what the world needs now and looking at the incredible fruit of God's Spirit as really the answer for so much of what we need and what the world needs. When we come to faith in Jesus, when we trust Him, His Holy Spirit comes into our lives and guides us and corrects us. And over time, we bear the fruit of God's Spirit, as you've been learning. In Galatians 5:22 and 23, Paul writes, "But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things." See, these are the qualities, really, that we all long for, and they're the healthy characteristics of a Spirit-filled life. The first fruit that we see in this list, it really corresponds to our relationship with God. It's love, it's joy, it's peace. And then the next set of fruit, Paul's list kind of relates to our relationship with others: patience, kindness, and goodness. These are traits that emanate from God's character. And then, towards the end, the list of spiritual fruit starts to touch on really our relationship with ourselves. It talks about faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are evidences of self-discipline brought by the Spirit's guidance, comfort, and correction. In fact, the word for faithfulness is usually just translated faith, but here it seems to mean not simply the faith which relies on Christ or on others, but it's the faithfulness which invites others to rely on us. More simply, it's not trust, but trustworthiness, the solid dependability of those who keep their promises and finish their tasks. Faithfulness is an important fruit of the Spirit, and I want to talk to you about that today. See, God's better future is made possible by today's faithful actions. One aspect of faithfulness that can really help us focus in is this aspect of simple, healthy, daily habits. There's been a lot of research into the power of habits. And habits basically run our lives, for good or for bad. A habit's just something you do today and every day, really without even thinking. In fact, James Clear has written a powerful bestseller called Atomic Habits. And in this book, he sort of lays out the 3 levels of change and how we kind of move through these levels of change. The first level of change is simply goals. And if you're like me, you love to set goals. You're good at setting goals. But maybe you're not so good at following through with those goals. You get overwhelmed or you get busy. Your willpower runs out before the change shows up. A lot of us are good at setting goals, but the follow-through is something else. And that's really where habits come in. A habit is one small change that you can do with big faithfulness. See, if the goal is to read 10 books a year, then you commit to simply reading 3 pages a day. If the goal is to get more organized, you commit to decluttering one drawer or box a day. You start small and you keep going until it becomes something you do automatically. Now, I know older research used to say that it takes like 3 weeks to form a new habit, but a lot of newer research is saying it can take anywhere from 18 days to 254 days, and that is quite a spread. I'm not exactly sure where they get that, but the average is about 2 months. So if you stick with a habit long enough, it's no longer just a habit. You enter into what we might call the third phase of transformation, which is identity. And now it just becomes a part of who you are. It's not that you read so many pages a day, it's that you're a reader. It's not that you work out every day, it's that you're a runner, or you're a neat freak, or you're a tea drinker, you're a health nut, you're a follower of Jesus, you're a churchgoer. This is the most powerful level of change because it starts to change the way you relate to things that maybe you used to struggle with. It's an identity thing. James Clear says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Let me just say that again. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I might tweak this and say that you fall to the level of your habits as well. So maybe the first question to ask is, if I'm going to kind of build back to better in this new season, what's the one thing that I need to change in my life? Well, what's one thing I can focus on? What is God calling me to change? Now, of course, you might have multiple things come to mind, but this is a key to help you succeed. Start by just picking one thing. I want to grow in my knowledge of the Bible, or I want to stop this addictive behavior, or I want to feel more connected with my child or my spouse. I want to feel more secure in my finances. I want my pants to fit again. Hello. Then just create an everyday habit, something small, and do it every day. And do it at least for 2 months on average. And then, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like I'm going to say one encouraging thing to that child or that spouse every day. Or I'm going to write down everything I buy every day, and then I'm going to add it up at the end of the day. Or I'm going to walk around the block once per day, every day. Maybe you could do more, but I would suggest that you keep it small, and you keep it simple, and you keep the promise until the habit becomes a part of who you are. And then pick the next thing that you want to change. Because the truth is, like, what you do every day determines who you become someday. What you do every day is what determines who you become someday. In fact, if I was to just be a fly on the wall in your life and I was to watch how you live your life over a couple day period, I could have a pretty good framework for where you'll eventually be in a lot of different areas in your life, unless things change, because what you and I do every day, that's what determines who we become someday. So when I think about my own life and the lessons that I've learned in this past year, a lot of things come to mind. There's a lot of things that have become really important to me. Many of them already were. They're even more important to me. God, family, church, meaningful work, friendships. I want to cultivate things that matter most. And, there's some core habits in my life that I've already been doing and that have sustained me. And there's at least one that I'm trying to engage in now going forward. And I'm prayerfully asking God to grow my faithfulness in this one new habit and in the continuation of these other habits. And let me just share mine with you. These are my daily habits that I hope will help me grow in my faith and become the kind of father and husband and individual God is calling me to be. They're very simple. My first one that I'm trying to be faithful to is simply this: to spend my first 15 minutes with God every day. Now, my first 15 minutes, and I did it this morning. I pretty much do it every day. Over the last year with COVID and all the things that went on with that, this was the habit that saw me through. And some of you are like, well, 15 minutes is nothing, because you're like super spiritual. Well, look, sometimes I may spend a half hour with God. Sometimes I may spend an hour, 2 hours, but I'm not going to set the goal or the habit so high that I can't fulfill it. Some days I got stuff I got to go do. And so I keep it simple and I keep it small. And my only commitment is at least the first 15 minutes. So I wake up, I get my coffee, I immediately sit down and I open up my Bible and I spend those first moments with God reading His Word, prayerfully asking God to move and work in my life. It's a key habit. Another habit is this: to tell my wife and kids I love them every day. Life is a gift, and tomorrow is unknown. And the last year taught us that so profoundly. So I'm trying to text more intentionally, call more intentionally, tell them I love them each day. Third habit is to simply give thanks for the church and to pray for my church every day. You know, I've read recently that 29% of pastors in America seriously looked at quitting the ministry altogether in the past year. I don't mean leaving like one church in one area to go serve in another church. I mean leaving ministry altogether, almost 30%, literally working in another sector in their life. And I think it just goes to show it's been a challenging year for so many sectors of society. And the church has not been exempt from that. It's been a really tough year on church leaders as well. I'm trying to cultivate my gratitude. And I think over the last year, one of the ways that I've stayed engaged in the work God has called me to do and kept a great attitude and have done well with it is because every day I'm praying for our church and I'm praying for God to work through our church to help our cities. Can you imagine where we would be right now if it wasn't for all the work churches did this last year to encourage people, to pray for people, to feed the hungry, to help individuals? I don't want to take it for granted. Another habit that I'm trying to engage in every single day is to read or listen to books for 15 or more minutes a day. I mean, I love music and I love listening to music, but I'm really trying to engage this habit to keep learning, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, to lift my leadership lid. Leaders are learners. And I just want to keep learning all the time. Sometimes I listen to a lot more than 15 minutes or read a lot more than 15 minutes. But my habit that I'm trying to lock into is just 15 minutes a day. Now, these are the habits that I felt like helped sustain me through this past year, helped sustain my marriage, helped sustain my faith. I've been faithful to them, and I want to continue to be faithful to them. I'm asking God's Spirit to cultivate that faithfulness in me. But I want you to think about your habits. Maybe pick one area that you want to change. For me, the one habit that I'm trying to be faithful in is simply this: to work out more days a week than not. That's it. When COVID hit and the gyms closed, I closed my little home gym in solidarity. You know, I didn't want everybody else to not be able to go, and so I was just trying to keep it fair. But I've been so flaky and so sporadic about working out. And here's the thing, at my age, my health decisions there's really not about what you look like anymore. It's now about being healthy and going the distance and being present to do the things that God is calling you to do. And so I'm trying to work out more days a week than not. I don't work out because I love it. I don't. I'm working out so that I can be healthy enough to do what God calls me to do in the days that I have left. See, I believe that our ultimate identity is in God. And if we'll simply lean into His Spirit, let Him cultivate that faithfulness in us. Lean in and listen to the thing that maybe He's calling us to change in our lives, the thing to address. Maybe boil that back down to a simple habit and start to engage it. You could see that victory go from just maybe a goal in your life to a habit in your life, all the way to an identity thing in your life. Because we're God's, we're His kids. He has plans for you. He can actually fuel the changes that you feel from healthy habits and allow them to become a part of who you are. You know, you're not a number on a scale. You're a child of God. You're not a number in your bank account. You are a child of God. You're not the worst things others have said about you. You're a child of God. You're not a hopeless case. You're not too old to make a difference. You're not too young to have influence. You're not too broken to matter. You're more than your bankruptcy or more than your breakup or more than your medical condition. You're more than your follower count or more than your anxiety or more than your job title. You are more than what's on your resume. You're more than what you may have lost. You're more than the labels people put on you. You're more than what you do. You're more than what you fail to do. You're more than your regrets, and you're more than what you even think is possible. You're God's kid, and He has a future for you. And if you will cultivate that faithfulness, let it grow in your life, boil it down to a simple habit, and build one better habit, you're going to set yourself up to have that become a part of your identity. And people will one day, they may ask why you're doing it. One day, they're going to ask how you did it. Because what you do every day, that's what determines who you become someday. So ask God to cultivate that faithfulness in you. pray this week about one thing that maybe you need to change in your life, one simple habit that you could develop. Keep it simple, keep it small, and just start to do it every day, and just stay with it. And then as eventually it becomes a part of who you are, take another small, simple habit and begin to build it into your life. God's better future is made possible by today's faithful actions.